Now, I want to comment on one of the final comments that Brother Bernstein made before about the free market. And it is the unfettered free market, the free market left to its own devices, that have caused the downward spiral that New York's working families and American working families are feeling right now. And that's just a comment on what the brother said. So in addition to representing 38,000 transit workers, our union over the last 18 months has fought diligently to represent New York City transit riders, well, primarily New York's working families. We are working every day to strengthen and build relationships with transit advocacy groups, community groups, and clergy groups who all understand that working families need and deserve a safe, reliable public transit system. New York's working families fund the public transit system in New York State. It simply does not make sense that buses and trains or the rails that the trains ride on are manufactured elsewhere. The working families who use the system and subsidize the system deserve to have access to the jobs, solid jobs, that support public transit in New York City and New York State. American taxpayers pay for America's transportation network. It's unintelligent, uninspired, and simply unfair for us not to have the manufacturing of transit equipment used to service our mass transit system built in America. It's actually outrageous. It's outrageous that we ride the trains every day. It's outrageous that we pay for the system, and yet the equipment that we ride on is made overseas. It doesn't support New York's working families. It doesn't support America. Now, and we're here today right now to have a discussion about revitalizing the transit system. And I know Lee Sanders talked about productivity and talked about how there has to be a reasonable financial edge for folks to come to Brooklyn or come elsewhere in New York State to manufacture equipment. Now, that can absolutely be done. There was discussion with the Buy America Act and other measures that the federal government can take to actually bring these jobs home to New York and the rest of America and do the right thing by America's working families who have really been kind of left in the lurch over the last several decades with these manufacturing jobs dissipating and going overseas. Let me just kind of end on a bit of a personal note. Up until fairly recently, I was a traffic inspector working in the subway in Brooklyn every night. Several years ago, historically the rails always came from Bethlehem Steel. Now, several years ago, the New York City Transit Authority began stockpiling rails, putting them in 38th Street Yard and elsewhere. Hundreds and hundreds of rails. And when track inspectors began to ask the question, why are we stockpiling these rails? The answer was that Bethlehem Steel was getting out of the 100-pound rail business that we use and historically have used in the New York City subway. And when these rails are gone, the rails are going to be purchased from China. Now, just on a personal perspective from folks that primarily live in New York City, which the overwhelming majority of local 100 members live in New York City, that was an incredibly disturbing reality message about the state of affairs in the United States of America. That we were now going to be inspecting rails that were made in China that previously had been supporting American families in Pennsylvania. We were pleased about that. That was very American to us. Very American. We inspect rails made in Pennsylvania only to find out that the federal government and the New York City Transit Authority was now forced to invest in rails that were made overseas. Those rails should be made here. The rolling stock should be made here. The buses should be made here. They should be supporting American families, working families in New York and elsewhere. Thank you.